there isn't anything that you're going to be able to do to fix the pain.
Right.
You can just be there to walk through it with them.
Hey, you're listening to The Rare Life. I'm your host, Madeline Cheney, and today I have episode 45, The Story of Emery. Emery is a super energetic, music-loving 4-year-old with Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome, a neurodevelopmental disorder. Her mom, Anna, is one of those Instagrammers I cannot get enough of. She is so good at articulating her feelings about her medically complex motherhood, and I can completely relate to so many of her posts at such a deep level. She has a way of saying things that I didn't realize I felt until I read them. Her account is called mothering_rare, and I highly recommend giving her a follow. A link is in the show notes for that. In this episode, Anna and I chat about the impact that Emery has had on her marriage, what it felt like to face a diagnosis in life that none of her friends and family knew anything about, and the ways that she has changed for the better because of her journey with Emery. Anna, her husband Justen, and daughter Emery live in Atlanta, Georgia. And here's a fun fact. My husband is also named Justen, and not only this, but they both have unusual spellings. So my husband is Juston, and her husband Justen is Justen, and my husband grew up in the Atlanta area too. So it's pretty cool. Anna is a lover of ice cream and journaling. Let's jump in. Hi, Anna. Welcome to the show.
Hey, it's so good to be on the show. It's such an honor.
Well, I'm so happy to have you. I've been a long-term fan of yours via Instagram and just the way that you have articulating your thoughts and emotions in a way that is so relatable. So I'm thrilled to have you. So I would love to start out with hearing a bit about Emery and kind of her medical struggles and a little bit about who she is and what makes her happy.
Yeah, so Emery is my 4-year-old daughter, and she is full of sunshine most of the time, I will say. She loves all things spinning, bouncing. She's a bundle of energy. She
Oh,
is spunky, and she keeps us on our toes in pretty much every sense of the word, medically, in life, just everything. And as far as medically, she was born with a rare syndrome. It's called Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome. There's not a whole lot that's known about it,
mhm.
and that is a deletion of a gene for her. It's the 16th chromosome. We have about, I think, around 10 specialists at this point.
Wow.
Yes, lots. With Rubinstein-Taybi, that affects pretty much every system of the body. So we are followed by cardiology. We see ENT. We have neurosurgery. We have neurology. The list just kind of goes on.
Yeah. Oh, man. And so you probably are in appointments. How many times a week would you say you have appointments?
It has slowed down a whole lot since
Yeah.
2020
Oh,
when
right.
everything had to slow down.
Yeah.
Before that, we were on the road probably a good 2 times per week.
Mm.
And the first 2 years of life, I would say we were constantly going to appointments, even more so. So
Mm.
things have slowed down a bit since those first few years, thankfully. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. That has been so nice for us too. Like, obviously, there's a lot of things about COVID that have been terrible and really hard, but I have appreciated the way that we've prioritized and been like, oh, well, this appointment can wait, and just having that break.
Yes,
It's really
absolutely. And it's been the
nice.
same here too.
Mm.
I know that COVID has brought so many complications for so many, but something that it
Mm.
really did bring for us was prioritizing us too. That was something we really hadn't done. My husband and I prioritizing our
Yeah.
health and saying, okay, we can't fit in 20 million appointments in one week. we need to figure out which ones we need to focus on. So yeah, I would say
Yeah.
that that's one of the good things that came out of 2020 for us.
Yeah, I think that's so hard, like, to prioritize like that because it feels like every aspect of their health seems urgent. Like, it seems like top priority, and it kind of is, but you really do have to say, well, what's more important than all the other top priorities, and then whittle it down from there. And I remember in the first year with Kimball, and I was like, I literally can't handle this amount of appointments. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I
Right.
just can't. Like, I cut feeding therapy, which he was tube fed and stuff. And they were like, he needs this. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like, that is the only one I can think of that could possibly get cut, and we'll start again another time.
Yeah.
But, it's so important. And I want to back to where you were talking about prioritizing yourself and Justen.
Hmm.
Um, how do you feel like your marriage has evolved because of Emery and her struggles?
I would say having any child is going to bring up all of your problems, really, like to the
Mhm.
surface. It's going to bring up things that you really didn't think were an issue. And so when you throw in having a medically complex child to that scenario, it brings up so many things that you need to work on. Either that or
Mhm.
it's going to rip you apart. And
Right.
so thankfully, with Justin and I, we worked really hard for it not to rip us apart. And there were so many things. I mean, you're making decisions on your child's medical care, and a lot of times two people in the same room are not going to agree or see
Mhm.
things the same. And so
Right.
with that comes so many things that you feel like could be an attack. As far as it's hard to, I have also written a post about this, but it's hard to remember you're on the same side, you're fighting for the
Mhm.
same child, and that
Totally.
you love each other, because whenever you have all of these emotions and they're running high, it's hard to remember you guys are together, you're a team no matter what. And I would
Mhm.
say for Justin and I, it allowed us to see the things that we needed to work on the most. And it really, really kind of shined a light on the flaws that we had.
Mm.
Everybody's got them, and it's going to come up no matter what. But it was just this bright, glaring light that said, hey, you've got a lot of stuff you need to work on. So I would say with us, Emery has not only shined a light on those flaws, but she has also allowed us to see them clearly and work on them, I would say quicker than we would have if she wouldn't have been around.
Interesting.
So I feel like we have actually gotten to a spot where right now, currently, we have worked on a lot as a couple,
Mhm.
as individuals, not just looking at each other and saying, you need to change this, but realizing the things that we need to change about ourselves in order to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
So I feel like Emery has kind of sped up our marriage process. Most people take
Yeah.
a good long time to realize a lot of the things that we have already realized in our marriage. So that's something that Emery has, I think, blessed us with in a way. Yes, it was a
Mhm.
fast and furious ride. And yes, we are still obviously not perfect and we have a long way to go, but we have been able to work through a lot more than we would have without her.
Yeah, and I think probably a lot of that is, everyday struggle with her, but then I don't know. I guess I'm putting words in your mouth, but at least in my experience it's been a lot of trauma related to all the medical stuff, and I think, that's a lot. That's a heavy thing to go through as a couple, and the chronic stress of everything and pressure, and
Absolutely.
it's a very quick learning curve. Like, you just have to learn it
It
really
really is.
fast.
Yeah, and it's just trial by fire. I mean, you're in the
Yeah.
middle of a fire and you are trying your best to get out. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fast learning process. You do or you die.
Yeah. Yeah, and what has it been like to see him take care of Emery and be her dad?
Oh man. This husband of mine is absolutely amazing. And to see him just lay down everything about himself and put her and me above him, it's humbling is what it is.
Mm.
Um, I was completely blessed with such a man that to watch him have that relationship with her. And a lot of times he's able to do things that I'm not really even able to do. For an example, one of the things that we struggled with, especially at the beginning with mobility, was Emery was very anxious in space. So basically, she
Mm.
had anxiety about being in space, standing without something touching her. With everybody else except for her father, he can put her on his hand and have her stand up midair, like dangling her over anything. And she's totally fine. But whenever
Wow.
I try something or her physical therapist wants her to stand in the middle of the floor with her feet on the ground, no, 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 not happening.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's so
seeing
cute.
him and the relationship that they have to where he can push her to do things that I really can't. Um, and he sees that potential in her and she feels so safe with him. It's pretty amazing.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
So personally, since Kimball came along, we were also one of those who found out via ultrasound. So even when I was pregnant with him, I felt like I was thrust into a whole different world that was very separate from my family and all my friends. And I suddenly felt very isolated. And then since then, I have found community. So people like you that
Mhm.
understand and get it and in a way that no one else can. And I wonder, what has that been like for you? What's that contrast between those two worlds? Maybe like your before and after of Emery.
Yeah. So whenever I had Emery, you have all of these, expectations of what life is going to be like after you have your child. So once she was born, there was half of a day where things were okay. She was born, everything seemed fine. She came out crying, and then at midday, she started having feeding difficulties and she
Mm.
started choking. And that sent us into a tailspin because she then went to the NICU, and that's when we started figuring everything else out.
Mm.
Once that happened, it's like your world as you know it shatters. You don't know what's up or down. You don't know what's right. You don't know really how to even move forward because you have no idea what's going on. It really does feel like you are living a completely different life than everyone around you. And that's scary because you can't even ask for advice on how to handle certain situations or what they would do because they don't know.
Yeah.
They haven't lived the same life as you. And even down to the doctors and nurses. I mean, yes, they know medically things that they can tell you, but they have not lived that life, most of them.
Yeah.
And they can't give you advice on what to do next.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess that is the biggest thing. You just don't know how to move forward. And that contrast between life before and life after, you're sure of things before you have a child with medical issues. I mean,
Mhm.
you think you know what's going to happen. You have this plan of what you would like to happen, and you can kind of rest in that predictability.
Mhm.
But then when you have the child with medical issues and you're in this different world, you have no predictability. Everything is unknown. And living there in the unknown is a scary place to be. Finding a community is so key to being able to move forward. And I started scrolling on Instagram all the time,
Mhm.
late nights with Emery, and looking, just searching for anyone that was going through the same thing. Now, something
Mhm.
that completely changed my entire world was that one of her nurses had taken care of a little girl with Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome 7 years before Emery was born. She had stayed in touch with this mama and
Mm.
she got us in touch. And once I talked to her and realized there's a 7-year-old little girl that has this syndrome and
Mhm.
they're okay and they are just living life differently. She gave me so much advice. She
Yeah.
even down to we needed to change hospitals because they were not equipped to handle what Emery was going through. And sure enough,
Mm.
when we switched hospitals, they found out she was aspirating her food. And
Oh, wow.
previously, the other hospital said she was not aspirating and had us feeding her orally.
Mm.
So I truly believe that whenever did get in touch with this mom and she helped us change hospitals and get Emery the help that she needed, that was just an absolute game changer. And
Yeah.
once we got out of the NICU and everything, and Emery got a little bit older, we went and met them.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was just so comforting because we had
Mhm.
never known anybody else with this syndrome.
Mhm.
And it really did change our lives. So that
Yeah.
contrast between feeling like there's nobody living the same life as you, and then all of a sudden
Mhm.
realizing there actually is.
Yeah.
Um,
I had a similar moment when I found other kids with Kimball syndrome.
mhm,
It was a Facebook group actually that
mhm,
someone had created, and there's only 125 other kids with this, so it's amazing that that was even out there.
mhm,
But to look through these pictures of these kids who are like 8, 9, and 10
mhm.
with the same syndrome and thinking, oh my gosh, we will get through this. And he'll be smiling, happy, at the park.
Yeah,
That perspective is everything when you're just trying to survive in those
it
those
absolutely is.
first
Mhm.
moments.
Yep.
How did that affect your friendships and relationships of people who, by no fault of their own, that just don't understand at that same level?
Yeah. So, there are a few friends that I can really say, even though they don't necessarily live the same life as us, they are always there and always understanding. Um, and really, they can support us so much. And they
Mhm.
do support us so much by just having that empathy. Then there are others that, through no fault of their own, don't understand how much time and how much your world just kind of shrinks, pretty much, I guess, is a
Mhm.
good way to say it, because you can't fit anything else on it. So the relationships, really any relationship that you have other than your immediate, your child, your spouse, your partner,
Mhm.
whatever, they just kind of fall to the wayside because you have no room on your plate for anything other than survival.
Right.
And there are going to be people who don't understand why maybe you keep saying no to them asking if you want to go out, or
Mhm.
you not showing up for birthdays, and you not showing up for things that you would have before because you're in that survival mode. So
Mhm.
there are relationships that have fallen by the wayside, and may not necessarily pick back up because they haven't, um, they don't really understand why you can't nourish that relationship as
Right.
much. And that is hard, I think, a lot of the times. However, you find that, I guess, the people that really do care and want to understand and want to be in your life are going to be there no matter what you do, no
Mhm.
matter what you don't do.
Yeah.
So, really finding out what relationships are here to stay is kind of where it takes you, because you really realize, wow, these people really are in my life, or, well, they just don't get it. And that's just going to have to be how it is, because I can't go back and change any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and you have to, I mean, again, it goes back to that survival mode, like, you have to do what you have to do,
Absolutely.
and that's hard when there's really no way to truly imagine that world if you haven't gone through it yourself, and,
Right.
has anyone so I'll venture to guess that when sharing things about Emery, particularly the hard things, and just being really open and honest, like I know you are, have you ever gotten the response of, well, at least, or just be grateful, fill in the blank? Have you received that from people?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I have. And a lot of the times it does come from a place of like, hey, I really want to see you be okay. And so how about we look at the positives? Or
Mhm.
I really want to see you just, you know, be able to function. Let's look at the
Mhm.
positives. And then other
Mhm.
times it comes out of ignorance. And I think discerning which is going to come from you.
Mhm.
But absolutely, I have gotten that you really need to be grateful for all the things that you do have. And while, yes, we
Mm.
absolutely are grateful, it does not take away the fact that this life is filled with both sorrow and joy, and both grief
Mhm.
and gratitude, and they can coexist. I think
Right.
a lot of the times people think that it's mutually exclusive, to you have to feel gratitude so you can't feel grief, and you
Right.
have to be happy so you can't feel sad.
Mhm.
And I have learned, especially with Emery, that you can actually feel both of those emotions at the exact same time. And in
Yes.
fact, you're going to feel a lot more than just two emotions at one time.
Yeah.
It's every single emotion all at once, and
Yeah.
it's okay. And
Mhm.
I think there are times where people are uncomfortable with that pain because they
Yes.
don't know how to fix it.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you have to realize you can't fix it. There isn't anything that you're going to be able to do to fix the pain.
Right.
You can just be there to walk through it with them.
Mhm.
So I think that uncomfortableness is just out of pure, you don't know what to do. And so let's just speed past it and try to
Yeah.
get to the positives. And that way
Yeah.
I'll be way more comfortable because I can deal with the positives much better than I can the negatives.
Right. Yeah, and it is interesting because I feel like it's so ingrained in our society to look for the positives and to be grateful, which again, like you said, like those are awesome things. But I think I realized one reason it really irks me, like I was kind of like, wait, what is this? Why is it so annoying to hear people like make the return of, well, at least blank and blank. And it really feels minimizing. But it also, I realize that when other people are trying to tell you what to feel grateful for when you just told them about the really hard things and you're opening up in that vulnerable way, it comes across as deflecting, and that
Yes.
your life is too hard or too awful for them to listen to and they can't handle it. But when the gratitude comes from within, like that's awesome. That really is helpful and amazing.
Right.
But hearing other people tell you what you should be grateful for is kind of a slap in the face. And it's counterintuitive because, obviously they mean no harm and
Right.
they're trying to fix you. So, I mean, really, they want you
Yes.
to be happy. But that realization, I had that epiphany. I was like, oh, that's why it irks me so much. Like, drives me crazy. But
Yes. I agree. And really, when people are saying, oh, just look at the positives instead of seeing or feeling what you do right now, that is asking you to brush over the truth. And
mhm,
I'm a firm believer in you have to be able to see the reality. You have to be able to acknowledge the truth in order to get to a place where you can be grateful. And
yeah.
if you are just ignoring what you are feeling and ignoring the pain that you are going through, you're never going to get to the place where you can be grateful and you can feel that positive and you can feel, joy and realization that you can feel both grief and gratitude.
Yes. I love that so much. And that, since realizing that and working on it, has really helped me process all of it, all the good, all the terrible, and everything in between. 'Cause
Yes,
it's a
absolutely.
lot. It is so much. Like, like we were talking about earlier, that learning curve, it's a lot.
Well, I tell you what, it is a lot and it is something that no person can do alone. We weren't
Mm,
made to do it alone. We weren't created to do it alone. I have
mhm.
actually been going to therapy now for almost a year. It's been more like 7, 8 months
Nice.
just to process through all of this because it is
Yeah.
so much for someone, for
Yes.
one person. So, again, going back to you have to be able to find your community. You have to be able
Mhm.
to find people. And for me, that's also me relying on God because I am a Christian and
Mhm.
me doing that by myself, it's not going to happen and I'm
Right.
going to stumble and fall over every little thing. But finding those tools that are going to allow you to be able to get to that place where you can say, yes, life is hard, but yes, I absolutely feel every bit of the gratitude and every bit of the joy. It's something that you have to have help with.
Yes, totally. I totally agree with that. And I think having those tools and that community, it's so strengthening. Well, Anna, I would love for us to wrap up with just your last few thoughts on the kind of person that Emery has made you and the wonderful aspects that she's brought to your life.
Wow. So, Emery, as a parent, you expect to lead your child. You expect to teach your child. You expect that you're going to be the one to do that.
Hmm.
The opposite is completely true for us. Emery is our teacher. She is our wayfinder. She is our leader. We go where she leads. And she has not only changed me as a person, but she has changed the entire way that I see the world and for the better. I'm more empathetic. I'm kinder because of her. I am able to see how everybody struggles, no matter who it is, because of her. I'm
Hmm.
able to be there as a friend for other people because I have gone through grief. I have gone through difficulties. And because I have that perspective and that experience, I'm able to relate to other people in a way that I never was before. She has changed my entire surrounding community. I have gained this huge family of people that just get it.
Hmm.
We've got this community of friends that have children that are medically complex and special needs and disabilities, and just they get it. And I
Hmm.
never would have had that kind of authenticity and being able to be vulnerable in my relationships had it not been for Emery. So she has
Mm.
brought the most amazing amount of joy, the most amazing community and different perspective to our world that I am so grateful for. And
Mm.
I would not be the same person without her. And I'm a better person because of her. And now I'm gonna cry.
Awesome. Bring it on.
Oh.
That's amazing. Well, I relate with so much of that. And you're so right. These kids, I mean, with all the hard and all the pain that comes along with it, I feel like the juxtaposition in there, you know, it's a beautiful thing. Like, not to bring it all cheesy, but it really is.
No, it is. And yeah, it's hard, and there are struggles, and would I take away all of the struggles? Absolutely. But would I change her for anything? No, I wouldn't.
Oh yeah, I love the way you phrase that. Totally. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Anna, for sharing your heart and a bit of your story with us.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You can follow Anna on Instagram at mothering_rare. And you can also follow me on Instagram if you don't already at the_rare_life. And there's a link for that in the show notes. I also have a link in the show notes to our sponsor, BetterHelp, which is an online counseling service. And they're devoted to offering affordable teletherapy, which is perfect for those of us for whom it is impossible to get childcare for traditional therapy. I thought I would throw this in there because of Anna's mention of how helpful her therapy has been in her life, and I can second that for my own life. So there's a link in the show notes if you want to check that out. Join us next week for Anna's fantastic special topic episode as we discuss her famous Confessions of a Special Needs Mama series. It is golden. Don't miss it. See you then.